Okay, so I'm super excited to have you on the show, and
I'm excited to be here.
Super fucking excited. So I'm gonna, but you know, I feel like Dave, because I'm a comic.
Have we started?
We're starting. This is it. There's no magical
can I say one thing?
Yes.
This is my idea of what like a successful metro Hollywood couple's apartment would look like. Lots of brick,
right? Yes.
Sparse, not much furniture, but of course a movie light in the corner. I like that. The mountains,
and the view, and also the movie light. When I bought it, I was like, "This is kind of a hacky light," but I bought it anyway.
Okay, I like it. I like it.
Thank you for your support. Because I'm a comic, I feel like there's a handful of guys who are like literally like in the comedy firmament. I mean, there's like the old guys that are practically dead. There's like the Pryors and that's not you. No, that's like the Pryors and the Murphys, the legends. And then right of them is like Attell and like Gould and like you're right there. You're like a mid-level constellation. So I'm very excited to have you on the show.
A low cloud formation.
Yeah, but a good one, like a cumulus, like a massive cumulus. Yeah,
the kind you make wishes to. When
or are you trying to get laid? Look at that pretty cloud, trying to act as if you're sensitive.
Sure.
Yeah, that too.
All right.
But the point is, I don't know anything about you.
Yeah, Dave. I know. We've never really met.
We've never met, ever.
Where did you start doing comedy?
San Francisco.
Okay, so there you go. So I started in New York. You started in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Probably by the time I was like, I would play the Punchline. I was just up there playing cops. But we started doing the Punchline. That was like one of the first places where we got to headline. You probably had already moved to L.A. or
that seems about right. Okay. I might have already moved out. Yeah, I never.
Did you? Always one town ahead of me. What's that?
I don't know about this. I was fleeing you specifically.
Okay. Not the first.
You feel, and I had to flee because no one ever takes you. Maybe you don't feel this way. I always feel like no one ever takes you seriously in the town that you started in because they remember when you sucked. Like but New York is a big enough town that maybe that doesn't happen as much there.
Yeah, New York is like not so much about like a lot of my friends started in San Francisco. Tom Rhodes, he's one of the big acts there.
Yeah, he's great.
And I just worked with Larry Bubbles Brown, who's like,
Bubs, is he still doing stand up?
Is he?
Oh boy,
I mean, is he?
Was he ever?
He did.
Hey, what's up,
no,
Bubs? I love
he's
him.
A lot of fun.
I love him.
And there's like some great San Francisco acts. I guess Jake Johansson, the San Francisco act.
Jake Barrett, Rhodes. Maron wasn't from San Francisco, but I always feel like he was a San Francisco act, right?
Yeah, that was one of his towns. But I never really lived there.
Patton and Blaine and all those guys. Brad Bassane. It was a good scene. Those guys all started around when I did.
Okay, so there was a lot more places to play in San Francisco then. They just closed the Purple Onion or whatever it was. And
what was the other?
The
Purple Onion, that was where Galifianakis did a special there. And there was the zoo. And then what was that other? The zoo was where I did my very first set. It was where I got my very first paid set. Okay. But remember that other place? It was like the West End or the half turn. There was like a place out in like kind of the Sunset. They used to do a lot of improv there. The Bottoms Up. I don't know, some fucking shitty name.
San Francisco was a great town. The comedy was so cool. The crowds are great.
Smart.
And also, it's like a fun town. Like sometimes you play these towns on the road.
Misery.
Where you're like, there's nothing to do. San Francisco, there was always a lot of fun, a lot of drink, a lot of partying.
Right.
So I always loved going there. And one of the greatest shows I ever had there was with Mitch Hedberg, who was opening for me.
Yeah.
And the late great Mitch Hedberg, who's amazing comic, gone in forever, I think. But he opened for me, and I said to the people, I'm like, why is this guy opening for me? He should be headlining. And then he became a headliner.
Right.
I would like to be. I'm the last guy he ever middled for. So
you're the last heterosexual relationship he had before he turned gay. Or maybe the other way around.
Something
like that. Right. I heard your phone beep. Can we turn? Is it your phone or is it my phone? Somebody's phone beeped. Let's make it.
That was my heart. I'm old. I have a pacemaker, so
I'm prepared to give you a CPR.
Perfect.
Did you
get the paddles out?
I'm just going to do that thing.
Never
that
a good
fake
thing.
shit
Get
movies where they just pound on your chest with their fist. Like it's never going to help anybody.
Get the paddles out, and we're going to go canoeing or kayaking, or we're going to play a little ping pong before dinner. Go ahead.
Were you?
Sorry.
No.
This is
your hour.
Super cool person. So
this is your. We're going to do that this whole hour. Yeah, this is your hour.
My moment.
Did you always want to be a comic?
No, actually, I'm not a really good performer. For those of you people out there who've seen my act, I was a very stiff, nervous, no self-confidence guy for I'd say about 6 or 7 years into the comedy scene, and I did a lot of comedy. I mean, like every open mic in New York, I was all over it, and. For me, it was like I really embraced the rejection, dejection, and defeat of it because I kind of came from that like background. I was never good at anything, so it felt right to me. And the people you get to hang out with, especially in the open mic when you're first starting out, everybody's like new, everybody's kind of bad but not bad, and everybody's really fun. Like everybody, like, you know, it's like finally you find people who like fun to talk to.
Yeah. So well, there's a nice. It's enjoyable, I think, at that level, especially to commiserate with fellow comics. You know, you're all in the same boat. Everybody sucks. Mm-hmm. I remember I used to come out of like these. There's this place in San Francisco that had like it was like a fucking like a laundromat. Yeah. And it's all comics. There are no real people in the audience. It's like, you know, 20 comics and like 3 people doing their laundry. And so I walk out of there and be like, it would be funny. It was like, I did not get one laugh in there. Like, and it would be, even thinking about it, it was funny because it was just so miserable. It was so abject that there was a comedy to it. But do you feel like, I feel like that was made you tough. Like those terrible sets made you funny because they made you impervious.
Well, it definitely killed me inside. So any feelings I had left were dead. But yeah, I think the first couple of years are good because I don't think it's so much true now because there's a lot of social media. People connect, you know, not so much in person, but through the web and all that. Mm-hmm. But it was really good for, you know, like to learn how to handle a bad crowd, to learn how to handle like, you know, the heckling and all that stuff. And to be honest, I kind of sucked for like years and years and years. And I didn't really deserve to get paid, you know, up until almost I did Letterman, I think. You know, I would say it's debatable whether you know, I wasn't getting paid either. So, you know, they give you like, you know, I think back then it was like $10, which was supposed to be cab fare. Right. Like at the Comedy Cellar, which is like one of the places where like I was rejected at first and then I got passed about a year later. They would give you a meal and like some food, and like that was kind of the pay, you know. Right,
mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, was there a moment? Because someone just asked me this question, and it was the first time it ever been asked to me, and then I thought it was kind of interesting. Was there a moment when you felt like you had it figured out?
Oh, I never really feel like I have it figured out. I do know what I want to do, and like you know, in my mind, because you know the people that like really influenced me, both alive and dead, were like, you know, Colin Quinn and Alan Havey, who...
Colin is going to be really upset to find out he's dead.
No, I was going to say, these are the living ones.
Living ones.
Plus the guys that I started with, you know, you know, like my favorites, like a Doug Stanhope or a Louis C.K. and, you know, like a lot of really great guys. And then there's the dead ones, of course, which are the, you know... the Bill Hicks and Sam Kinison, you know, and everybody always says Richard Pryor, but I never saw him live. But I did get to see Bill Hicks live many times, and that was like a high point for me.
Bill was like a transcendent performer.
Yeah, he was a San Francisco act too. Yeah, he played all over the country, and San Francisco is one of his like.
He was like his home base. Bill was one of those guys that made you ashamed of like everything you wrote.
Yes,
like everything you wrote, you're like,
or even thought.
Yeah, like I don't even have good ideas, and I have poor ideas, poorly executed. Whenever you watch Bill, you'd be like, I can't even.
Well, I was hanging out with him one time after a show at the New York Improv, which is no longer going anymore. But he came over a guy's house, and like, you know, we were all getting high, but he was already sober. And he saw there was a guitar, and he goes, "Hey, can I try that guitar?" And he was like a master guitar player, just great. And you were like, "Wow, what can't this guy do?"
Right?
I mean, like,
good
he's
at
so
everything.
talented. You know?
Good at everything. He had a bravery too. Is that why you admired him? Because I feel like of all the guys that. There are guys you admire because they're writers, there are guys you admire because their performance style, but I feel like Bill had this bravery, even different than Sam's, because I feel like Sam would just kind of ram it down your throat, but sometimes it was kind of blunt force. I always felt like Bill was brave, and he was like his work was crafty.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I like Bill for 2 reasons. One was he was an amazing joke writer, and when you first start out, you realize the hardest thing ever is writing a joke. And the way he would just connect the dots on some of this stuff, it was genius. And then I also like him for the fact that even though he's considered an alternative comic now, like kind of one of the forefathers of the alt scene, he would play like bumfuck in the, you know, like all these like crazy off the grid clubs, you know, the chain clubs, the mall clubs, all the clubs that I played, but he was like this all comic, and he never would, you know, whatever, he never would dumb down his material or his sensibility, and he would fight the crowd every step tooth and nail. And I got to see him on the road one time, and they were not digging him, and it was weird because he had already done Letterman multiple times, and like they could care less. They wanted him to just do the 3 bits that they had heard him do on something, and he had a lot more to say, and he would just fight them. Like it was great. And for me, as a guy who was going out on the road, I was like, wow, that is cool. That is balls. You know?
Right. Because there is that panic, right? Where you're stepping into a club, in Grand Rapids or fucking, 4 Points or Quad Cities,
whatever.
Where you just think like, these people aren't going to get me, and I've got to spend an hour with them, and I've got to find a way in, right? And he just never cared about finding a way in.
He didn't.
Yeah.
Now, on the other end is Sam Kinison, who I think is one of the most underrated great comics who ever lived, because when you look at comedy now, it's pretty much storytelling and pretty low-key, kind of like smooth jazz, you know what I'm saying? And I think that's cool for this generation. They're all kind of like hipsters. But back then, like, he was like a force of nature.
Yeah.
And before the drugs and the fame hit, it was an angry dude who grew up in this, I guess, evangelical world.
Yeah.
And he was just laying it down and connecting to that, both the evil and the good, and like mixing it together. And I really do wish I had seen him live. I never got to see him.
Yeah, no, I never did. And I, nothing but television. And I feel like I didn't become like a real consumer of, or even understand it. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I was just a beer drinker for a big part of my life. I just drank like you know what I mean? Like in terms of my comedy. What's that? No,
that wasn't your drink.
No,
what was your drink?
Bourbon. I'm a bourbon.
Really?
Bourbon is my.
I can see that.
My drink. Yeah.
Oh.
But in the sense of like, that like what I consumed in the comedy world, it took me a while to like hone my tastes. You know what I mean? Like I think in the beginning I knew the big guys and I loved the big guys, and it took me a while to find the guys that were underneath there that were like doing interesting shit.
Right.
Like Sam. And I think he died before I even really like got like to be like a real
I really
consumer.
do think that he would have had a resurgence, like especially after he went through like the trial by fire of both drugs and fame and up and down and all that kind of stuff. But he's more, I guess you could say, legend now than he is like relevant, because there's not that kind of comedy. It's
nobody's doing
correct.
That now.
Like that was like balls to the chin, in your face.
Maybe Stanhope does something in that spirit.
Well, that's true. Very good point. Stanhope was a good friend of mine. I would say he's the last. I call him the last Mohegan. He's the one guy who will never go on the reservation. He's the last guy playing bar shows, people standing up, basically standing and just booze, puke, and piss.
Was the name of his last special was No Refunds.
Yeah. So, and I've seen him so many times, like we I guess first met at the Montreal Comedy Festival, and Doug and I, like, I always use him as my check. Go, am I being a hack? Is this a hack bit? Is this a hack thing I'm doing? Because if Doug doesn't think it's hack, it's not hack.
Right, exactly. When you were a young, what
I was never young, by the way.
I never used born this day. Born came out with a beard.
An old soul, as they say.
Just came out stroking that beard.
Yeah.
So you said you didn't always want to be a comic. So what was the thing that drew you to comedy? I mean, other than your love of, did you grow up like being a lover of comic? Like just.
I loved listening to comedy albums back then. George Carlin and Rhino Records used to have all that kind of, like, I guess you could call it now, like, I don't know, it'd be like kind of like Adult Swim type, crazy parodies and just sound effects, and I would just laugh and laugh. But I remember buying Richard Pryor albums like at the mall, and like, my mom would be like, you can pick out one thing, and I would buy the Richard Pryor album, and like, I just couldn't get enough of it. So I was a fan, but I was not really thinking that's something I would do. And it wasn't until I was after college, almost like right up until the last year, I went to NYU with Adam Sandler, and he already was a comic. And the first road gig I ever did was in Queens with Adam Sandler. I totally died. It was on a dance floor at disco. I died 1,000 deaths. He killed. And he was just so likable.
I wanted to blame the venue, right? But
I couldn't do it. It was me. It was just me, horrible, and him, great. And it's funny because when you say like, do you knowing your voice and all that kind of stuff, he knew almost, I'd say right away, like who he was on stage, what he wanted to do, his plan, and to give him a lot of credit, he brought a lot of good people along with him.
Yeah,
so,
he's bananas loyal.
Yeah, he truly is. Yeah,
and he'll remember. I mean, we worked together a couple times, and he's just a guy who just remembers everybody. And he's like, if I ever have a shot, I'll give it to you. He's like very, he has a circle of people he tries to.
And those guys, even though they're film guys, they're still at their heart comics. So I think when they do movies like Funny People and stuff like that, it's really because they kind of miss the nostalgia of the whole club, experience, the drama, the highs and lows of it, and all that kind of stuff. The only thing is, they do that movie, and then they get back into their helicopter and go to to their millionaire island.
Right.
I can only imagine.
Millions.
I don't know.
An island,
What do I know?
or Whore Island, Millionaire
Exactly.
Island, which is next to Whore Island, just a little jaunt away.
You love that Whore Island.
I
It's
do.
so
Whore
good.
Island. Who doesn't like Whore Island?
4 days, 5 nights.
Super friendly, super all inclusive in every way.
Sure.
We're going to jump around. I like to go chronologically, but I want to ask you about that because when you've been a headliner as long as you have, like one of the reasons we've never met. Other than we started in different cities and kind of had maybe like you're obviously you have much more accomplished than I am, but like parallel trajectories is I feel like you never interact with other headliners ever
Because you're on the road.
Yeah, because you're on the road, and so that time, like that 7 years or 8 years, whatever, that baby comic time where you're with all your peers and you fuck with each other and you give each other tags in the back of the room and you like that goes away. Do you ever experience that anymore?
Oh well, that's cool you brought that up because now that like most of the guys I know have headlined on their own. I've done a couple of tours with guys, but now I'm on a great tour with Jim Norton, Artie Lang, and we just recently had Amy Schumer, who's super
fun.
funny.
That's great.
And it's called the Antisocial Tour, and we just did a gig in Minneapolis, but we've done like variations of the same tour. It's not the blue collar tour. Like we'll never get to that point of like fame and like I got a lunchbox and there's no catchphrase or anything.
It's not like that. Fucking straws coming out of
it's
it.
It's just old dudes just basically trying to pay a mortgage, selling dick jokes, and but that's a lot of fun because we get to hang around and we all pretty much are filthy dirty comics. We don't fit with anybody else. So,
right. That's great though because I do feel like. That part, I have a guy that opens for me, and so I've got like that experience of like somebody I like. I think they're funny. But that you've been doing it for a long time now. Is
26 years.
26.
Yeah,
wow.
I'm 47.
I'm 19. I'm in 19 years, so I'm starting my 20th year.
Okay.
I started like you right out of college, but I'm much older than I look.
You look great.
77. That's.
I started right after the Vietnam War. I started right after college, and now that I've been doing it more, like almost half my life, I can tell you, like, I'm glad I never wake up and go like, damn, I wish I never did comedy.
Right.
And it's like I love doing it. And
did you go through a period where you felt that way though?
Oh, the beginnings, because I had day jobs. So what I would do is like, I lived in Brooklyn before it was cool to live in Brooklyn, and
when it was just poor people.
Yeah, I would go into the city, do my job, go home, change, and then go back out for the open mics. Get loaded, wasted, drunk, whatever. Then run back to Brooklyn, and then come back to work the next day and like change in the whole, the room and all that kind of stuff. It was a lot of years like that.
Yeah.
And I never really think about those years because those were the hard years of like bombing and like just not even knowing what a joke was. Like one of the best advice things anyone ever said to me was like tape your set.
Yeah.
And I tell it to every young comic that like comes up to me and go like, what should I do? And I'm like, well, do you listen to your set? And they'll be like, no. And I'm like, well, you got to listen to it. And it's painful, right?
So fucking painful. I have so many recorded sets I've never listened to.
You'll do everything else until that, like, you'll groom a dog, you'll clean your ceiling, and then it's like, oh, that tape is waiting. And then you'll listen to them. And I actually, when I was getting ready for a special, I had to listen to, like, 17 hours of old sets. And it was like,
punishing.
The same joke, told 15 different ways, horrible.
Every once in a while, like, there's a buried gem. You go, oh, there's a tag in there, I forgot. Yeah. But 17 hours, I couldn't listen to them. I couldn't do it.
I could, if there wasn't, I would want to throw myself out of something, a window, a car, or something. It was horrible.
It's. I love that guys come to you for advice because I feel like. No, I know, but I mean, like, I would love to.
I don't think I've done.
If I ever saw you, I would be like, oh my God, there's Dave Attell. I'm going to ask him what I should do.
Well, the joke we always used to say was like, well, what do you do with the microphone? What hand do you use when you take it out? And they'd go like, well, my left hand. I go, well, I can't help you. It was like one of those like kind of gunfighter things.
Right.
But I think most of the comics, the comedy community, like especially like in New York, it's pretty much like once you kind of earn your bone and get into the club, there's really very little competition. There used to be like towns like that was super competitive,
like
Boston.
Wow, Boston, right? Murder.
I went up there and did a headline set when I shouldn't have headlined. I wasn't even good enough to headline. And every dude up there can I curse on this?
Yes, like a
rip me a new asshole, gun the shit out of me, would say, do you mind if I can go ahead of you? And I was like, from New York, of course.
Right, yeah, because it's collegial down there. No big deal, right? Yeah,
exactly. Let this young professor, he probably has a class to teach in the morning. And they would just gun me with local references and voices.
Right,
and,
just destroy and
the mayor
blow the room up.
the Reveres and all the towns. And then I would go up there with my shaky ass, 46 minutes, and I died. And I deserved to die because I was in their town and they wanted to show who's boss. And
right.
Much respect for the Boston scene back then.
Yeah. So. Wow. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, everything I've ever heard of everybody's come out of the town was that it was just, like a snake pit. Just, sharks.
It was, best man, whatever, survivor,
right,
whatever it is.
Best man winner, last man standing.
Something like that. There's a lot of dudes.
It was a sword fight in Boston, for sure.
It was. Yeah, you're right about that one.
When you were... I'm still so curious because I think of you as being such an artful comic.
I'm not. I am not an artist, or I'm really not. I'm just tricky. I'm not even that good a comic, and I'm not saying that just because this guy's so. No, it's like I look at my friends and how good they've gotten and how they found their voices and stuff like that. And for me, it was always about the joke. Like, what's the next joke? Go on stage, find the next joke. Don't waste the stage time. Because when I used to work the door at the Improv in New York, I'd see the same guy come up. Same people come up every night doing the same act.
Right.
Then they get wasted, and then they all were high-fiving, waiting for the call for a sitcom.
Yeah, waiting for Letterman to stride in and anoint them.
Yeah, no, they all thought they were going to get sitcoms. And then I said, if I ever get to the point where I'm getting that much stage time, I'm going to try something new every time, or as much new shit as I can possibly do without totally destroying the gig. And sometimes I'll go up and do half-ass bullshit. Sometimes I'll just try the joke a different way,
right? And
it makes it interesting for me, and it also I think is what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
On these kind of gigs, that's what I think. But
I think those guys also. I mean, you've also come across because you've done so much road work. Mm-hmm. The guy who's stuck in the town because he's been doing the same hour for fucking 15 years.
Bobby Bitterman.
Yeah, Bobby Bitterman. Dead inside guitar guy.
Yeah.
Where you're just and they don't understand why nothing's changed. I'm like, because you haven't changed. Mm-hmm. But I guess I'm curious about that feeling of going up there and is there a part of you that's maybe addicted to the panic of, is this going to work or not?
Yeah, no, I really do love the idea of being outgunned, outnumbered. I love the fact that that it's not working sometimes, and or I'll say something totally inappropriate and then try and win it back.
Yeah,
I guess it's kind of playing. It's jerking yourself off.
Well, it's like Tiger Woods, hit into the sand, see how many strokes it takes you to get it out.
That's true. I wouldn't put myself on the level of Tiger, but I think it's.
You get it. If you could get that much pussy, then that would be really great. It would be fucking awesome,
man. Either way, that guy. I mean, the good thing about comedy is that if you get the stage time, which is really what makes a comic better. I think you were just talking about it earlier. It's true. It's the stage time really does make the comic better. Nowadays, I think a lot of people do some stage time and then they have some kind of following through Twitter or something like that.
Right.
And they immediately try and go to the next thing. But back when I was starting, and I hate to be the old man, it's you middled and then you headlined, or you did open mics, got some credits, and then you went out headlining, and you still were unprepared.
Right, right.
What was all that about? You
right.
know, how could I not go over here in Kansas City? How could I not work?
Why is it not working? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and I remember when I was a baby comic, seeing guys headline. I remember seeing some guy headline up. You played Tommy T's in San Ramon. You ever played that?
Yes, I did.
I remember going out there.
Stage, as I call it.
Yes.
Got a little stripper stage there.
A little tiny, narrow 4-foot stage. And a guy getting up there doing 20 minutes material and then pulling out a notebook. And I remember thinking, if I'm ever a headliner, I will never fucking do that. But you're right.
That's the wrong club to do that in.
Oh my God, yeah.
That is the
and he got
club.
What he deserved.
Oh yeah.
He learned his lesson.
Good.
But I think there is no substitute for time. It doesn't matter how funny you are, how talented you are. You have to just keep getting up.
Well, there is that point where, I don't know if it happened for you, but where you cross over, where you realize that, my life before this is now gone.
Right.
The me before comedy is now almost a memory. The people that I, talked to and hung out with, they are no longer as relevant to what I'm doing than now. And I'm not trying to be a dick about it. It's just that you finally found that group of people that kind of understand you, that go through the same stuff with you, and it's so much fun to hang out with them. And that's when you lose your earlier life,
right.
Your friend from whatever college or all that kind of stuff. And it does suck because when you look back on it, you're like, why didn't I hang out with those people more?
Right,
and
right.
They all had regular jobs and had families and all that kind of stuff. So
you're
it's
a
different.
vampire, though. I mean, you're
And it's definitely there's definitely something to like the nightlife, to the once you get like into like the scene and the style and just like the feel of like, dude, look at all these suckers going to work, man. I'm fucking wasted and I'm going home. Yeah, I just hope I can make rent this month.
I want to return to a question I asked you before, and then I want to talk about that more. Because you were saying that occasionally you throw out a joke that you know is going to derail the set, and then you try to bring it back. And you're at a point in your life creatively where there's no doubt you're going to be able to get it back on track. But was there a time earlier on where I guess I remember vividly the times when my set would derail and I would panic. Like, I'm like, I can't, this is it. This set is over. I'm done.
Right.
And then I remember kind of slowly doing it long enough to be like, okay, no matter what, I know I can get them back at some point. So do you remember that time in your, like, I guess I'm like wondering about that transition when you started to realize that no matter what, you were going to be able to bring the audience back on your side?
I don't know. I mean, I had a lot of sets where like, I would call it a draw, if not a loss, where like, like I did my time, which was always the important thing back then. Like, just do your time.
Just do the time you were paid to do.
And then you realize, this is like, poor comics, but you realize you just burned through all your material in 8 minutes. And now you have another whatever hour or whatever you have to do. And that's kind of also good too, because then now you got to really start thinking on your feet.
Yeah.
And New York is known for its crowd work and all that kind of stuff. So we all kind of like grew up in this whole like interactive, in the moment kind of thing. And that's what I like about comedy, like when it's in the moment. Like when one show will never ever be like that again. Like
never.
There'll never be the guy wearing the funny hat and the girl who was a bachelor party. Actually,
right.
There's always a bachelor, but you know what I'm saying.
Yes,
like the characters that make it all so special.
Yeah.
But I would say that like when you lose the crowd, you got your work cut out for you. If this is about comedy, I would say that a lot of comics go up there, especially new comics who have like honed their set. They think. And they don't lock into the crowd, or they don't read the crowd. Like I look at the crowd, I'll always go, "What's the crowd like?"
Yeah.
And all those people are like, "Does it matter? You're just going to do your set." And I'm like, "Well, it matters to me because if I do a Klan joke and there's a guy out there with a hammerhead skinhead, I don't think he's going to like it unless it's a pro Klan joke. So it's like sometimes these jokes might help the set, sometimes they might save your life.
Right.
So that's what I think of it.
Yeah, protect you from a curb stomping.
Exactly.
Like that too.
Yeah.
Oh, I had something great to ask you, and it fell out of my head. And it was about like the life of a comic. So you were talking about these people, like the people that you had a relationship with before you became a comic, and your life now.
Yeah.
How do you feel? Do you have kids?
No, I don't have any kids. I'm not married. So
do you feel like that was a conscious choice, or was that just a side? I don't have kids either.
Come on. Look at me. I'm ugly.
No, you're not.
It's not a conscious choice. I think that in comedy, like you really are pretty lucky because, like, I always used to think that, like, I'm packed and I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
Which is it's a loaded thing, meaning that, like, I can leave town. Like, I can leave town for like 3 weeks and whatever, like whoever I was hanging with no longer has got a boyfriend, or like the people that I was hanging with, they moved on and like they're on the road or something. So I always felt it was kind of cool that like every town's different. You move, you keep moving around, and for a while there, especially in your 20s, I grew up on Long Island. It was pretty boring. It was kind of cool to be in like the heartland and like being up in Alaska. Like doing all these crazy shows all over the place. So I was into it, man. It was like my Hemingway kind of moment, getting out there.
Well, you're like a renegade on the road. You got a tiny bag. You're rolling.
It was before the shoes off and terrorism. So we were walking on the plane, just having a great time.
Yeah.
But no, I regret the fact that I didn't put more energy into developing a sound relationship, or at least get a dog, because all my friends who are married, they always have that to talk about, and I'm always like, it's like, you always have that, because that's the whole thing when you get. First, it's finding out what a joke is, and then it's finding topics for jokes. And I think every comic, after 10 years plus, is like, now what should I talk about? What's going on?
Wife, kids, dog.
Topical. Should I become political now? What should I do?
Right. And there is something both wonderfully and terribly repetitive about the life of a comic. I mean, I loved Insomniac because it was the first time when I felt like somebody in our tribe was talking about what it feels like to be in a place and not of a place, and have kind of like this unlimited period of time to kind of do whatever the fuck you want, because we work for an hour a day.
Right.
And you're in a place where you've kind of got like, you've got a weekend, you've got 4 days, you have money, you don't have any responsibilities.
True.
And, you can use your powers for good or evil, and most of the time we use them for evil.
Yeah, I think that the cool thing about that show was, even though it wasn't designed as like a drinking party show, if anything, it was supposed to be about, when I came up with the show, it was about like finding the party in keep using Kansas City, which is actually a party town, at least back when we used to play it. Is like finding a party in the offbeat towns, not the Miami, the South Beach,
right?
The high end, like where an ugly dude like myself would party, like which was the majority of America, which was regular people partying on the weekend in Charlotte, Carolina, all that kind of
right.
stuff. So that's what that show was about, and it was also about people who worked late. And that show was really cool. It really did like draw a crowd for me.
Yeah,
but it wasn't necessarily the best comedy crowd. It was a TV crowd. That was my first experience where like people see you on TV and they want you to be exactly like you are on TV.
Yeah.
And before that, I really was like basically focused on becoming a comic, like a national headlining, like
a touring comedian,
to the wall, fucking hard, knife fight comic.
Yeah.
And that brought in a whole other crowd. And
were they soft?
It was
Did you feel like
good.
they were a
It
softer
was
crowd?
good and it's bad. I mean, there were great times, bad times, but I did get to make some money at that point.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, now that like that crowd is older and like some of them still come to the show, but all I can say is that like I'll perform to anybody as long as they don't bring in their politically correct bullshit. Snarky bullshit and like are on their phones and taping and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
That's the only thing that bothers me now. Heckling, that's like I guess universally part of comedy to some degree.
Right.
But back then it really was like it was impressive to see how many people will come out to see you do a show when they have seen you on TV. But I never fell into this whole like bottle service. Now I'm going to kick it with other celebrities, the Deadliest Catch guys, and other reality stars.
Yeah.
No, I never consider myself. I'm a loner, and I like my deal where I get to roll whenever I want. And all I'm going to say is that I thought up the idea of the show. I'm glad people liked it, and I'm glad that we stopped doing it.
Are you glad that you stopped doing it?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think I could have continued forward with it the way it was going. Not because the idea was stale, just because we were not getting access to like the things that I wanted to do, which was the late night stuff, the jobs and all that kind of stuff. And also, people knew about the show, so they would come down and kind of like act out.
Right.
They would act out, and I couldn't use it because
you couldn't get access to the kind of the underworld that you wanted because people knew who you were and you were kind of a known quantity.
I was supposed to be a fly on the wall kind of guy. Come in the bar and drink it up, and
you were kind of doing no reservations before Anthony Bourdain was, though. I feel like.
Well, I think what he does is kind of like more important for society. Knowing where to get a steak in Haiti. No, I mean, all these shows have their problems, and I'm jealous of these shows only for one thing, like the travel aspect. Like, we got to go on like 4 big trips. They go to like, where are we going? It's like Switzerland, and then we're going to head to Thailand. And it's like, no, I'm like, we had to save up. We had to like kick money into a can to get to Germany,
So we're going to jump back, and then we're going to jump forward.
Sure.
Because I'm still so curious about your first. So you said your first set was with Adam Sandler. Was that? Did you go?
That was my first set. That was the first road gig. Even though we both were at NYU, he's a year or two younger than me, so I was just lucky that he asked me to do it. My first gig, I guess you could say, was at Governor's on Long Island. That was the first like real stand-up club, and I bombed horribly. That was the club where like Kevin James and a lot of the Long Island guys came out of. John Mulrooney, who is really, I guess, not known as much as he was back then. He was like the king of that club and a really funny guy and like really got the crowd going. And, those guys would MC and they'd bring you up. And I just remember basically myself, the feeling where you leave your body and watch yourself bomb and boo yourself? Like that's what was going on in those situations. And that really continued for a long, long time. I was not a performer. I was not a performer. I mean, I had a good sense of humor, I thought, but I was never a performer like, hey, who's in the school play this year? Attell. No, I was never that. So.
Did you ever have that? I might have already asked you this, but I'm so curious. Because I think Bill Burr named like his 2 specials ago because he's made like 15 fucking specials. Fuck you, Bill.
Bill is a great
He's
great
so
comic.
funny.
Pure.
He's
a pure comic.
He's a pure comic, and he's incredibly prolific. And pretty much every opportunity I have to tell him to go fuck himself, I do.
Okay.
So, because he's made like 7 comics in the 7 specials in the last 3 years. But he named one of his specials, "Why Do I Do This?" And I remember thinking like how vividly I had that thought. Like in my, like, you know, just at points in my career, like, why am I doing this to myself? Did you ever have that moment where you're like,
I don't know, man.
Because you know, you said you had all those years where you really struggled as an art, like as a comic, where you weren't funny and you were bombing kind of consistently. And did you ever have a point where you were like, maybe I don't want to do this anymore? Because I feel like comics just in their bones, no matter whether they're killing or failing, know that they're comedians and they can't stop.
I didn't have that kind of self-esteem. So
Really?
I'd say for the first 7 years, I had a day job to some degree, in one way or the other, and that it was always like, keep doing it. You know, maybe this is the guy I'll be where I have a day job, and then at night I'll do comedy, and I'll be cool with that, and that'll be my thing. And I guess there was part of me where like I wasn't successful at the day job. And I wasn't successful at comedy. And then once I think I got one credit doing something, maybe it was like A&E at the Improv or something. Then I was like, well, I guess I am a comic. I mean, like, there's no denying it now. I'm actually being recognized as a comic.
Right.
And as I went forward, like with Letterman, and then I was a writer on SNL.
Yeah, I want to hear about SNL.
Then I was like, I'm in this business, regardless. But up until I was about 29 or 30, I was always like, what's the age limit on joining the Navy? Because I was like, that was my plan. I was going to do that in high school. I was going to do it after college. And I kept pushing it back to like the point where I was like, all right, well, I'm just a comic now. I'm drunk, I'm drinking, I'm hanging out, having a great time. And I love doing comedy. So, it took me a long time to accept that was what my life was going to be, the comedy. So,
what was your life like for the time you were at SNL? Did you...
Okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say, did you love it? Did you hate it?
No, I think for a lot of people that's their dream. Like a lot of the people that I started with that year, it was their dream to be on that show. That was like not even in my dream box to be on that show. I'm not putting the show down. I'm not saying I was, I really, like I said, I really had just figured out like about being a comic. And then all of a sudden this came along. And I had like agents and managers at that point to some degree. I was friends with Jon Stewart. So, like, his people were kind of, like, half managing me. So,
yeah. Did you know him from stand-up?
I knew him, from the clubs. And, as good as he is now, he was a great comic way before any of us were. He figured it out. He had known, he just really is a naturally great guy to be hanging out with, but also, like, a really good comic. And, like, he really has a great sensibility, of the situation, what's going on, and, like, very topical and smart. Smart is definitely the word you can use. So, either way, my dirty, filthy act, at that point, I was like, now I feel like I know what I'm doing. And, like, I'm going to get out there and I'm going to be Bill Hicks, or I'm going to be one of these guys and I'm going to fucking die on the road. My parents are going to have to pull me out of some shitty morgue, some, like, or they're going to bury me there. And, like, then, like, years later, my niece or somebody will come dig me up. I had all these great, like, dark fantasies about dying on the road. And then the SNL thing came along, and they're like, we want you to be a writer, assistant. They have, like, all these titles over there. So it's like, we want you to be, like, a writer, assistant, kind of cast member, but you'll never get on camera. And I'd never written a sketch. I've only written for myself. And then they threw me in that situation. And it was a bad situation, like, to begin with. But I'm glad I had the experience, because what I learned at SNL is probably something you learned living in LA, which is that show business has like a way about itself. Like show business promotes show business. That's what it really promotes. It's never anything else. Like after the show, and we would do some horrible shows on SNL. I couldn't even get a sketch on. So when you don't get a sketch on, your job is to sit there and just like be someone that no one makes eye contact with. Like, oh, this guy's a loser. This guy's a loser. Don't even look at him. You'll get his stink on you about not getting a sketch on. So me and the other people who didn't do it, we would sit there, watch the show, mingle around. I left the show sometimes to go do stand-up because I was like, fuck it. I'm not going to hang out here and just be like on the bench all the time.
Right.
So anyway, The thing, but then they would have these elaborate parties at SNL, like where they would like take over an entire like restaurant, and all the writers would sit in one area with their girlfriends, and then the cast members would be all milling around to be like this, like all these chicks that wanted to meet them, and then there would be the host of the week would be sitting with Lauren and the head writer, and they would be like at the table, like on the top of the mountain,
with like a spotlight.
Yeah, and I'm like, that's show business. That's what it is. It's like everybody has to know their place, like a caste system, like in India or something like that. And then there'd be me, like the guy, like really drinking. The rest of them like were like Harvard drinkers. I'd be like really drinking, looking for blow or something like that. I'm like, what happened? I thought this was like the funnest show in the world. What the fuck's going on here? And then it was like that for a whole year. And sometimes you would get a joke on, you'd be like, yeah, I did it. And then sometimes you'd be like, wow, this is just a horrible mistake. I can't wait to get out of here.
Was it as competitive and kind of cutthroat as some of the
absolutely.
people? Yeah.
But you know what? To be fair, there's a lot of really talented people at SNL, and a lot of them had, like I said, dreamt of being on that show, wrote at Harvard, and did all that kind of stuff. So I give it to them.
Right.
It was just the wrong scene for me.
Right. And then how long ago after that? Was it before or after that you were at the Daily Show?
I would say it was probably afterwards. I did like some of the corresponding thing, and that was really just, I think, John throwing me a bone, because he was really just like, you go up there and like we'll get like a bunch of your jokes, like, because I was like a big joke writer, you know? So I'd write like a bunch of jokes, like, and then we'd find a topic, and then we would do like this kind of back and forth, me and John going back and forth, and that was a lot of fun. But I always felt like, once again, it was like not my scene. It was like more, I could tell like what he was going to do with the show. He wanted to make it really what it is now, which is a powerhouse of like, great sarcastic views of the news, a parody of like the real news. And I didn't see myself as a part of that. Louis Black, I thought, made that show. He really was so funny, and when I got to tour with him, he was the first guy I met in comedy who like told me like, hey, it's really all about like sticking to what you believe in, and like he was the first political comic I ever met, so he's a big influence on me too.
Do you feel, looking back now, because I feel like I'm hearing a trend, and not in a negative way,
a failure? So far,
no,
you brought up is a fail. I don't mind that, because I revel in failure. So, right?
Good. Well, as long as you feel at home. It was something about you not being a joiner, about you, because I think that there are some comics who like kind of a group setting, and there's some guys who just are loners, who just thrive best when they're writing for themselves or performing for themselves, that there's something about isolation that they enjoy.
Yes, and I mean, like, I'm a loner in terms of my life, I guess, but I loved hanging out with the other comics. When we first started, we would all like go, like you see in the movie. We'd all get something to eat and yell, topping and all that kind of stuff, making fun of each other.
Talk shit. I mean, the best part about being a comic is sitting down with 10 people and just talking shit.
Yeah, that's always like the fun of it. But I would say that I was not a joiner. I didn't have the skill set that would, like, I was never an actor. Like, in my family, the most talented person is my sister. She's a musician, like, actress person. She's really great. And I was just, like, the guy who blundered into this stand-up world, and it kind of fit me. And, when you say, like, I'm sure you've run into this because, like, you've done, like, some acting, where it's like, you run into these actors and they go, like, I'm thinking of trying stand-up. It might help me with my acting, auditioning. And I'm like, well, you know what? If you go into it with that mindset, you're going to do it twice. And then you're going to be like, why are all these people hanging around in this horrible situation on a Tuesday night at 1 a.m? What, don't they have to get up and go to the gym and do, whatever voice things? And you'll be like, no, this is it. This is real comedy. It's not what you see on TV. This is being a comic right now.
Yeah.
Waiting to go on somewhere, or working a shitty club somewhere, or your flight's canceled and now you're not going to be able to make rent, and the club owner blames you. Like, you run the airline, or doing radio at 6 a.m. after you've been, blasted all night and, like, trying to get through it. Those were the early days of comedy, and that's what being a comic is. But when these people come into it going like, oh, that would be a great thing for me to, like, show another side of me, I'm always like, I don't know if we want to see that side.
No, we don't. And also, when people say that to me, it's like, I think you're all in or you're not, because it's like there's the first set and then there's the 1,000th set. There's no fucking around. Like, either you're going to try it the one time and either it's for you or it's not. But it's not like you do it 10 times and you learn something. You learn that you don't have a stomach for it. I mean, I don't know. I feel like you're either all in or you're not all in.
I think that's the best way to put it. It's like you got to go all in on it and then like let the cards, fall where they may. And now that I'm like 47 years old, and I don't mind giving my age away because, I'm not going to be in any of the Twilight Saga. I'll never be on any of the teams. But
Me and you both, my friend.
I don't know.
You because you're old, me because I'm black. So
all
yes.
right, we haven't even gotten into that aspect.
No, we'll get there eventually.
No, but the point of it is that when you're all in on it and you realize that like this is my role. And that I'm either going to make the best of it and like do the best I can. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people who want to be famous, and like I never wanted to be famous. I wanted to be like this unknown, crazy fucking comic. I wanted to be this guy, and fame became a later thing once people become famous, and also we live in a world of fame. So you'll be the guy, the comic that night, and then some guy will come up to you and go like, dude, I love your CD. And his girlfriend will be like, who is this guy? Why are you wasting my time? And then, you'll be like, it's like, I don't care about her. And I'm cool that this guy likes my thing. But you realize that like fame is its own thing. Yeah. And that I'm glad that I was never, because I know a lot of guys who are decent comics, but never became famous and hate themselves. They're bitter.
Right.
And I'm like, if you really look back at it, dude, for the last 15 years, you haven't had a real job.
Yeah.
And you should always think about that, how much, like, you could be a bitter lawyer right now. You could be a bitter guy running a car dealership.
Right.
But you're a guy who gets to, like, come into a club, say what he wants to say, and leave. You know, and
exactly.
That's cool.
And work an hour a day.
Yeah.
Well, you talked about the fact that you felt like it was somewhat of a trap because once people saw you on Insomnia or whatever they saw you on, they expected a very specific experience from you. And I don't know if I asked you this question, but did you ever feel like you had to deliver TV Dave Attell during the Insomniac period of time?
It wasn't that hard. So it wasn't like I was, like a.
Are you sober now?
Yeah, no, I haven't drank in years, but no, but back then I would go shot for shot with these people because a lot of them, like I grew up in the bar code, like the bar world, and like I love bars and like hanging out in bars, and that was the thing. Like when I watched the Jersey Shore show, which is like kind of like like a group of people hanging out and drinking in bars basically and getting into mischief and all that. I'm like, well, now with Twitter and all that kind of stuff, like it's impossible to have like the same kind of bar experience. So I'm kind of glad I'm not in that world anymore. Yeah. But yeah, I would go shot for shot. We'd do shots on stage, and like stand-up's another guy where like some guy, you'd be right in the middle of a bit, and then some guy would like sneak up past the security, put 2 shots of Jaeger. And then you'd have to drink them. And then another guy would bring 2 shots of Patron, and then you'd have to drink them. And the next thing you know, you're shitting blood. That's what happened to me. No, but yeah, it was a fun ride with the drinking. I would say this though, for the comics of today, that there is no pressure at all to do any of that craziness. It's just pure self-destruction. So I would say embrace it, live it up, dude.
Right. And everybody needs that period of. I mean, I think there's something. I'm sorry to get super heady, but I do feel like there's something about art, about being an artist, about making art on some level that you need to break things. You need to, you have to live. You can't just like kind of get up every day and have like a bowl of yogurt and like read the paper and then get on stage and do anything transcendent or interesting. You got to break something at some point. You know what I mean? I'm sure there's some guys that are just like maybe naturally so talented that like no matter what they can get up and be great. But I feel like you've got to suffer and you got to break shit and you got to be a little fucked up.
I wish you were my manager. No, but I think there's a lot of guys living out their romantic kind of Viking funeral of like, I'm going to burn out and I'm going to be Morrison. But I never was. I was like, I really enjoyed like the bar lifestyle. I mean, I was from Long Island, I was raised drinking basically. And it wasn't like it was like I was putting on airs. I loved to drink. And, I did my job. I was a functional drunk and all that. But I would say that when you say art and like,
I know you said you don't think of yourself
I don't think
as an
myself, but I believe it is an art form. The way I do it is not arty at all. It really is not. I mean, like I know all the tricks, and I'm going for a different thing. You guys are artists, but all I can say is that it's unfair to the guys who don't party and whatever to not include them in their own. Because for every guy who gets up and goes to the gym and eats the yogurt, he has a million other psychological problems, which I'm sure you've had to sit next to and hear over and over, some mother issue or some kind of commitment thing. And, I don't know who's in worse shape, the drunk or the guy who has the OCD.
Right.
Has to keep touching his keys.
or it's the end of his nose.
It's horrible.
Yeah. And did you have a moment? Where was when you probably told the story already? But what was the moment that you decided to get sober?
Oh no, I was done with it. My health was in bad shape, and it was really more about like I was in my 40s, and I just like I wanted to move forward with my life, and I did become a better comic. After I was more focused and angry because I didn't go to any program or anything like that.
Yeah,
I was very focused and angry on my act, and then the audiences changed, and then I became like a whole different kind of like everybody's on their machines and they're doing this thing, and I also got to the point where I was like, how much more of this do I want to do? Like, I want to keep doing this until I don't want to do it,
right?
And I don't want a club to go like, you know what, we can't have you back here. And
last time you were here,
the numbers
urinated in the carpet.
Oh no, not that. I mean, like
the numbers.
Yeah, the numbers are low, and like we did all. They won't have you on the radio. They won't do all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So I don't want to just drag it out. I want to like do it to do it, and I want to do it because I really have given comedy my all. I really do feel like I've given it my all, which is the saddest thing ever. This is what it is. But I would say for that when I kind of grew up because like my dad died, and my dad died before the Insomniac show came out, so he got to see me on SNL, but he never really got to see me like kind of do my own role and all that on the Insomniac thing. And I had to step up responsibly, like my mom. Like we lost our house, and I had to get my mom a house, and I had to step up and kind of be very responsible. And I realized that like I am going to do this with comedy, which is probably the most irresponsible career you can have. Like you really can't count on like money coming in,
No.
So I bought a house and all that kind of stuff. So like I realized that like the drinking is not going to be part of that, and that I was trying to be an adult. So, but it's boring. If you're listening to this out there and like don't quit drinking unless you absolutely have to. Honestly, it is boring. Life is too long without booze.
I stopped drinking this year.
You did?
Yeah, and I don't know that I didn't get sober. I just stopped drinking. You know what I mean? Like
you seem like a very together person.
Well, I'm the OCD one. I'm the anal crazy, like obsessive compulsive. I always tell people if you've never seen a unicorn, the next most rare thing is a black person with OCD, and I am that person.
Wow.
And so super kind of type A, super like work obsessive.
Is that self-diagnosed or people have told you?
Self-diagnosed, I'm sure. I mean, if I brought somebody into my home and they saw all the right angles and the fact that I like dust bust out the bottom of my refrigerator, and like can't have anything on the car. I mean, like it's. I
call that clean. All right?
It's a high functioning OCD. I'm not debilitated by it, but it's it's there. It's definitely I have like a set of obsessive behaviors, but. I'm interested in that because I just stopped, and I love booze. Like the first 10 minutes of my act is about how much I love alcohol, like how I love to drink, how I had like a very elaborate bar set up in my house, and I have like special glasses that I drink out of, and I'm like obsessed with I walk into a bar, and if they didn't have certain things behind the bar, I wouldn't drink there. I'd have to go somewhere else. I mean,
then you weren't a drunk.
No, I wasn't a drunk. I was a drinker. I was like
I stuck on the bar rack.
I was like an aggressive recreational drinker.
Okay.
But like you said, there were things that I wanted to do that I realized that booze was kind of in the way of.
Yeah, I also lost a lot of friends to drugs and alcohol.
Yeah,
like Mitch Hedberg. He, of course, there's a lot of powder involved there. But
and then Greg,
I partied with
Geraldo.
him, and then Greg Fitz. I'm sorry, Greg Fitz. He's been sober longer than anybody. No. Greg Geraldo, who was a good friend of mine, and we used to drink together, and we always used to say like, I don't trust a guy who doesn't drink, and like it's kind of true. Like even now at this point, it's like I don't trust myself not drinking. Some of the stupid ideas I have. But yeah, we had great times doing it, and like I think a lot of people romanticize the lifestyle and feel that you can indulge in these things. And all I'm going to say is like, is you could be a drunk truck driver, you could be a drunk whatever, and then just because we're comics, we just have more time to do it.
We just have more time to do it.
And less responsibility.
A softer landing. Yeah, it's softer landing. I mean, if you go out, you do your shows, you can drink until the sun comes up, and you don't have to be anywhere the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that nice soft landing, right? But you still got to get, I mean, I wonder about, like, on stage, you were saying you became more focused and angry because I almost never drink before I go up.
I never
because I fucking forget my tags. I mean, that was the thing. I just didn't want to have a bad set. I was like, you got new jokes you want to try out, or like it just takes the edge off your razor.
Oh, I love going on stage. There were some guys I was like, I have to have my shot, and then they'd run up there and do their set. It's like, I loved going on stage. It was the afterwards part that I found so depressingly boring and lonely and all that kind of stuff. So there was a lot of drinking on towards the end of the act where we do shots and all that kind of stuff. But, I don't think that's like, just kind of, who cares at this point? Now it's really about like there's so many other self-destructive things that people do.
Yeah.
That like like I smoke cigarettes. If you want to get personal, I was like, the cigarettes are going to kill me before the booze ever would have. And like but like being on the road without cigarettes is like almost like I can't even fathom it. I mean, it's like way too much downtime. Like I spent hours standing around waiting to do radio, waiting to get on a plane, like all these different things. I don't think gum is going to fill that void. What do you think?
As I say, you can only masturbate so many times.
Yeah, well, that's another thing.
And you can't do it in the airport for sure.
Which is a great tie into the porn show.
Yes, let's talk about the porn show.
Yeah, let's first talk about why you can't do it. Now, I wanted you to do the show because we've had some of the most amazing ladies I know in comedy on it. This season, Amy Schumer and Kathy Griffin, Lisa Lampanelli. And we had Chelsea Handler, Whitney Cummings,
who's
Margaret
got
Cho.
a perfect last name for it.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Everybody's porn connected there. And it's great to have them roll with it. Now, you are doing like some morning TV
I have
show?
a daytime TV show.
Yeah, you have a daytime. Okay, so now I totally understand.
It didn't seem like a fit.
But I asked a lot of people.
If I wasn't on that, I love my daytime show, but it was really, that was it.
I totally understand.
Because I think it's a great fucking idea. And I talk about porn all the time.
Yeah.
But just my head next to a penis was just a little off-piste for her.
But that's the whole thing. It's like, it's cool to get not only a funny person's perspective on it, but a woman's perspective.
It's a hilarious show.
So that's really, like, I have tons of male old porn stars, and I need funny women to kind of, deball them, basically,
Because the whole point of the show is it's vintage porn. It's like this kind of great old...
It's old.
Yeah, like just sepia toned, right? Just like daguerreotype.
Yeah, it is very Zabruta filmy, kind of crazy, weird. Where you find? Is it? These are all your own personal possessions. You guys are digging this stuff up for the show. No, it started with like the ones that I knew, and then like of course I used to do the VHS porn, like top loader shit since it like came around, and as a comic on the road, like I love porn, and living in New York City, which used to be the porn capital of the world, now it's like the iPhone Sprint.
But no, it's here. It's I mean, it's.
But like buying porn.
Oh, buying porn.
I didn't even know where porn was made back in the day. I was like, I thought it was dropped from heaven. I was so excited.
Angels bring it.
Yeah, I would come like when I thought they would have new tapes, but I was always too afraid to ask the guy like, when are you gonna have new tapes? And it'd be like really exciting when they had new tapes at these shitty, disgusting New York peep show places. But anyway. The thing about it is we bring out the comic, we watch these old clips, we rag on them like Mystery Science Theater.
Yeah.
And then we bring out the legend to tribute it. But we also do young porn stars watching old porn, which is very cool because a lot of these young ones, especially this season, Asa Akira, Jesse Jane, Caden Cross, Shawn Michaels, who's a legend, a man of color, by the way.
Very exciting.
Exactly. I call him the Denzel Washington of porn.
Well, there you go.
He's about my age, but he's ageless. He also, like you wouldn't know. And he has one of my
Unless you look very closely at his balls and then super old.
And I have. And he packs a lot of meat, so everything is,
very exciting.
It's all good. And it's cool to meet these people. They're all so cool, and like hearing their take on it is so great. And we also brought in Adrienne Curry, who's one of the hottest, coolest chicks ever.
Yeah.
And Andy Dick to balance it out.
Absolutely.
So that's a show at the end of the season. The one coming up I don't know when this is there.
Will probably go up next week.
Next week. Okay, so by then that'll be Thanksgiving. So we're going to do it right with a holiday classic, Debbie Does Dallas.
Oh, that is a classic.
Now, you must have seen that one. You've seen porn.
Everybody's seen that one.
Okay,
I have seen quite a bit of porn. I'm not a connoisseur.
What kind of porn do you like?
Well, what do I
Straight
like?
Up, like guy and girl, like your show?
Yeah,
or?
I'll almost look at anything. There are a couple things that I find relatively disturbing when it gets to be like gapey. I can't do any kind of gaping related stuff. That's kind of gross.
You're not alone with that.
But so here's what's interesting. I don't think I was a big consumer of porn in the traditionalist days. My husband and I have looked at some stuff together.
But was it his idea or your idea?
But it depended on the day. Sometimes it was his, sometimes it was mine.
Okay.
Usually if you're looking at porn and you're with someone you can have sex with, you don't watch it for very long.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I often stumble into it like accidentally now because like I'll be looking at like Gawker, And then there'll be a story about like naked, Congressman
Porn.
Weiner.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden I'm on Fleshbot. And then once you're on there, I mean, it's like the YouTube of porn. You just like fall into the rabbit hole, and then you're
Yeah.
looking at a guy having sex with his roommate with his socks on.
The sun goes down, the sun comes
yeah,
up.
sun comes
Yeah.
up. Your eyes are bleeding. And that's always the fear that I have about porn, and is that I will look at too much of it.
Oh.
And then it won't be effective anymore. You know what I mean?
See, that's very adult of you.
All right, I just feel I can't. Like at some point, I'm like, oh, I'm not feeling anything.
Yeah, I'm
when I
pretty
watch
numb
this.
to it at this point.
Right?
You know,
This is like, oh, let's put the thing in the hole.
all the people who work on my show, a lot of women, and like we basically, have to watch endless amounts of retro porn looking
To like find the good, like the clips, right? Yeah.
and also finding the scenes of the people that we want to attribute to.
Right.
And everybody has a million different pseudonyms, and like there's been looped, and the movies are all like very who knows what the movie is. So I have really good people that do it. But we I immediately go like, okay, so let's look for like a good doggy shot, and like we'll be looking, and then I'll be like, all right, just fast forward.
Right. I
Like
can't even do it. So
none
I
of us
don't
are
feel
enjoying
anything.
it.
Right? No,
it's work. So, but
it's like
now
trying to cure your kid of smoking cigarettes and giving him 100 cigarettes.
Yeah.
Right? It's like it's all the fun has gone out of it.
But
so,
I feel like my brain now has been hardwired to retro old porn now. So like when I watch new porn, I'm like, what is wrong with this?
right, you
People
don't know
are
what
shaved.
right,
What
and
is
the
going on
lights are
here?
too hot.
Yeah,
There's too much detail.
Tattoos. What is that? So
Do you? Oh, this is an intimate question. Is there anything that you would find exciting anymore? Because that's the other thing. Like once you see, like I feel like if
kissing
you see like
and hugging.
Yeah.
That's what Kathy said on her show. I just like kissing and hugging. And no, I don't know. I mean, like I think the more, first of all, as a guy, when you get to meet these legendary women, especially, and the guys are cool too. But like me and Chrissy Canyon Ginger Lynn, after growing up, like rubbing like endless gallons out to these women, it is kind of a cool thing. And like Christy's super hot still, and so is Ginger, and like it's fun. But yeah,
they seem happy, or do they seem like sad clowns?
Everybody always puts this whole sadness on there, but I think I could find 50 real estate brokers to porn star that are sad.
On the sadness quotient,
whatever, have done like disgusting hot tub fucking close the deal moments.
Right.
But either way, I think that there's a lot of preconceived, like they were touched or something. They're like, I really don't care. It's not that kind of show for me. It's a party show.
Right,
it's a
yes,
tribute
you're not
show. It's not an in-depth like Charlie.
You're not going to
Rose.
stop it all down and be like, so tell me what happened when you were a child.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, I feel like that's their personal business. And as a comic, which I think we're all kind of broken toys.
Right.
It's like, evidently something's not right with me that I do this. So I assume with you, you have your own
stipulate to that
so
and
I'm
move
just kind
on.
of like respectful of their lives. It's not
Right.
like, we're callous or whatever. It's like, I'm here to bring them out, have a good time, do a couple dick jokes, and like show some of this great stuff. And I think they enjoy it because they never got the tribute that they deserve.
They get
And like
no
it wasn't
respect at
until
all.
now, like with Sasha Grey, Jenna Jameson,
Right.
the crossover acts that like became like really cool and hip to like, hey, I know a porn star. We have a porn star in this, like an Entourage or something like that.
Right.
That like, a lot of these people are like just kind of used up and thrown away.
Yeah.
So I don't like that. As a comic, I kind of feel like we're all in the same club of like, we're out there putting it out. We're all alone. And at the end of the day, we're just going to be some kind of like skid mark on the street of success or whatever.
Yeah.
So I want to give them their moment. And I feel like I hope the show does that. And the porn community, which I've hosted the AVN many a time, a lot of people come up to me and they go, thank you for doing what you do. Like I'm some returning soldier or something. I'm like, thank you. Thank you for doing what you do.
For your service.
Yeah,
Dave.
exactly. Thank you for the excellent films that have,
Thank you for the double penetration.
Yes. See,
By the way,
terms.
you can't look, but I've seen it enough times where I'm like,
know all the
now
terms.
that's just another DP. It's just another DP.
But I would say that, we could talk about a neutral topic, which would be toys. Now,
Yes.
I think women finally have embraced the fact that like they can have a toy or toys.
Yes.
And it's cool. And as a dude, I am totally cool with that. I think that's great. There's a lot of guys who don't even want the women to have vibrate. What is this, Pakistan? I mean, let the woman enjoy herself.
Right, exactly. You're not going to do it anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Let her. She knows her body, and this is a thing made to help that.
Yeah, it's like having a spotter. You know what I mean? Yeah, it is.
really
Like,
is.
well, how would you?
I call it the stunt dick. I mean, that's what I say. It's like, hey,
I'm going to tap out for the hero dick.
there you
and
go.
I'll be back.
And I'll be the one taking them out to eat. So it's a win-win.
And so have you ever had any of these porn stars come in and look at and like be touched by when you do that kind of the homage piece?
That's a great question. A lot of them, since they've made thousands of movies, beyond anybody, it's so hard to even get an exact number on how many movies they made. They look at the movie, they look at themselves fucking, and they'll be like, wow. And you can tell, I'm like looking at them, look at that, and I'm like, I wonder if they're hard or if they're sad or if they're whatever.
Wistful or proud.
What other emotions could be?
They only have
sleepy,
those 4 to sleep.
Whatever. And I think a lot of them have a flashback to this time, because the one thing I will say about porn stars, which comics wish they were, is like they're always in the moment. Like they'll like do like, you know, whatever, hey girlfriend, and they'll like go down on each other and like start eating each other's boxes and all this stuff. And like you know, there's very little like, you know, forward thinking. It's like, this is now.
This is happening.
I'm a sexual person, and I really express myself through that, and they're into it. And I think when they watch themselves, especially if they're older and they watch themselves back then, and it's like they're like, I think I can always hear it in their head, like, man, I was really fucking hot.
Yeah,
I was like the shit. You know? And now the older ones, they still have like this amazing menopausal sexuality to them.
Right.
You know,
they're probably more sexual now than they were before.
Probably. Yeah. You know, I think you're right. I think you're right about that. That's a good point.
How interesting. And like you said, they probably don't get their props at all, because I would imagine that in general, except for a couple of big famous stars, mostly men, porn, like many other things, is a young person's game. So, you know, especially for the women, right? You do well in your 20s and 30s, and then, you know, they're the kids coming up. I mean, it's like anything, I would imagine.
True. But there's a lot of kinks now, the MILF and the, you know, the daddy porn and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we could talk about it all day long, but I was just wondering, like, since you've done modeling, right?
No, I look like one, but
okay, is that insulting?
No, it's not an insult. It's very flattering.
Okay, my next question was porn. Did anybody ever approach you to do porn?
You know, no. But I was very bookish and nerdy.
That's a kink too.
I could have done some like kind of like Harry Potter-esque stuff, and you know, was like hell-bent on college and all that shit. Since then, I often have fans tweet and ask, like, are you going to do Playboy? And I'm going to say something awful that it's going to offend you and all of the people.
Probably not at all.
I feel like, and I have posed nude twice, both for women's magazines, you know, in that kind of like Hollywood way where you're kind of covered up. I did it both, one for Glamour on
a cock tease.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm absolutely a tease in every way. But I would never do Playboy. I can't think of any circumstance under which I would do Playboy or porn.
Wow.
And it's super judgmental, saying it out loud. I feel like
Playboy's a numbers game. Like they usually throw a lot of money at you, or you.
But you have to be in need. You know what I mean? You have to essentially be in need. You have to say, I need the money.
Or it's like to reinvigorate.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the people who have done it, I fully respect it. It sounds more judgmental than it is. It's just not for me, because I feel like as a comic, that would essentially like break my shield.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. But now you didn't ask me if I would do it.
So now, would you do porn, really, Dave?
In the world,
it's all about you leading me back to asking you whether you would do porn.
No. It's like, I would never do porn because, first of all, I have a small dick, but also...
But you know what? There's a fetish for that as well. Absolutely.
Right.
Whale and a Tic Tac. Absolutely.
No. I never like was like the guy like, I wish I could be in there. Like, I'm into just the situation, basically. And I think most guys, once they watch enough porn, it's situational. Like, you know, it's like, that's the cool thing about the retro porn. Like, it's dramatic.
Right.
Cheesy.
Yes.
A lot of yelling and screaming at each other, you know, a lot of like fake soap opera-y moments, you know. And like today's porn, it's really basically like P90X, gym, bang, you know, pile driving. But I was going to ask you this because, like, you know, a lot of these girls, like now in these magazines, they'll show like the old hairy porn as like a kind of like back in the day.
Right.
And they'll show today's porn. And I have to tell you that, you know, maybe it's from watching all the retro, but the girls back in the 70s and 80s, there's a sexuality to them that there isn't today with today's girls. And I think a lot of it has to do with, you know, back then these girls were either partying or they were in like some kind of like wild moment.
Maybe more self-selecting too. I feel like there were fewer people doing it, and the people that were doing it wanted to be there. And maybe there's so many more people doing it now that, like, I don't know. It's just like, you know, there's just like millions and millions of videos being generated. And so kind of the quality of it has gone down, and people can get it so easily and for free. It doesn't feel special anymore. So it's just like, get to the good part now. You know? Yeah.
You're right. I just think that, like, when you brought up Playboy, it's like that, as a guy who reads Spank Mags, like, that's pretty low on my totem pole. I'm not putting Playboy down, but I'm putting Hustler up.
Right.
Hustler, I like a lot better. And, you know, I like it all the way through, from conspiracy theory to Dick of the Month to
They're still doing Beaver Hunt.
Yeah, exactly. And the girls that are in that, like, we use that as their credits because, like, that is big in the porn world. Like, for every girl in those magazines, there's like another 50 who tried to get in.
Right,
there. And
right.
It really is like, we can poo-poo these magazines, but it really is like a good sounding board of like who's hot, who's working, where they are in the business. And I would just say that, like, I think every woman wants to watch the porn that they want to watch with their guy, but he wants to watch it, basically
alone.
Dirtier. No, dirtier.
Oh, yeah, dirtier. Yeah,
but I don't know. I think today's guys are pretty metro, so maybe they don't. Maybe guys find some porn. Guys have turned me down from being on the porn show. So.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't watch porn.
Right.
I'm like, is that possible?
How could that be possible? Did you not know it was free and available on the internet?
Not even that. It's just like, how do you get through the day without it? Or the week, I mean, at some point there must be a moment where you're like, I feel like watching some filthy, dirty porn, but I guess
there's got to be some people who don't. There's got to be some people who don't.
Building houses somewhere for the poor.
I think it's generally. I would never poo-poo it. I think it's natural for people to want to look at pictures of people having sex. From the time you are able to pick up a National Geographic or a Playboy or go and look, every kid does it, male and female. I mean, there's that natural curiosity, and I've never really had a problem with it. In like a conceptual sense, and I've looked at it, and I look at it occasionally, but I do. My main concern is that if I looked at it more, it would stop being interesting.
Bingo, you're right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
that's why you got to look at more. That's when you got to double up your chips, as I call it.
I think it's perfect timing to do self-inflicted wounds.
All right, so I'll keep it in the comedy world since it was a comedy story.
Yeah.
One of them was my fault. One of them was not my fault. And both of them took place at the Comedy Cellar. And it was a Halloween. And I've told this story before, but I feel like now I've come to terms with the story. Now, it was Halloween, and back then they would do shows on Halloween. They don't do them anymore because it's a pain in the ass. People always throw in a smoke grenade. There'd be old people drunk in costume, really, really frightening. And, there was people, all these costumes, and we're working the crowd, the drunks, heckling, all that kind of stuff. So working the crowd. Guy comes through with two other guys. They're all wearing masks, and the guy's wearing this full face mask. And I'm like, hey, dude, what's that? Like, the Lion King or, whatever it is. Turns out he was in a horrible fire. He was the guy who needed to wear the thing because his face skin was grafting. Oh. So I felt horrible about that. Okay, that was like one of those where you're like, what the fuck was I? And
no way to get your foot back out of that pile of shit.
Like, I think I saw him at the bar, and like was like, bought him a flaming drink. No. Might as well go all in when you're evil.
Why not? And then I laugh like an asshole anyway. Okay.
But then another time at the Cellar, which was a pretty good one, a guy started whipping bottles at me. Oh. And this is when you realize that, like, you really are a person alone. I said to my relative who was a Green Beret in Vietnam, I said, like, I kind of know how you feel. Like, I kind of know how it is to be, like, up against the wall and outgunned and outnumbered. And he looked at me like, you don't know anything about that. So I'm like, okay, well, but this was my, like, moment here. So a guy, I said a joke about diabetes or something like that. And I guess a friend of his had died of something, whatever. He wasn't really listening because it was not that kind of thing. But they were talking the entire time. And a guy started whipping bottles. And, like, it's a brick wall, and they would crash.
And that stage is tiny. That's a really intimate space.
But I did not lead the stage because it was my job. The MC wasn't there, and they had no security there, so they had to get the security. So I kept going like, security. And I was like, psh.
Oh, my God.
And then finally, the thing that eventually gets you is like, why doesn't the crowd help out?
Yeah, no, they're just letting it happen.
Where are all those good people we hear about? And they were kind of enjoying the nightmare of it because they were a bad crowd to begin with too. So, but then one or two people did get up and like kind of like got in the way because the guy got up, and it became that kind of a scene. And I've had many instances where someone has gotten on stage with me uninvited, and that's always where you realize that, like, this is really just Dave talking into a microphone. Now it's like, this could get bad. And I'm ready for that too. But
are you?
Yeah, no, I'm ready for it because I'm not going to leave the stage. Yeah. I'm not going to leave the stage unless I absolutely am told by the club owner he's got it covered because it's my job to hold the stage. Yeah. That's really the job. Oh. And, whether you're up there juggling or telling dick jokes, your job is to hold the stage until, because if there's no one on the stage, then it's bedlam. Then it's mayhem. Then people are walking around, and it's going to be just trouble for everybody. But you know, I'll never forget that, because I was like, wow, this is cool. So this is how it ends. You know, just basically getting hit in the head with a bottle,
right?
And you know, everybody, you know, taking pictures, and then it's over.
And then they carry my cold corpse out of here.
Yeah. And I was always like, you know. The cool thing about it is no one got hurt, and the cooler thing about it was like I really didn't care you know, it's like I was never angry at the guy. I was never angry at him, because I was like, you know, dude, the guy had a bad night drinking, whatever like that. Good thing no one got hurt, but the balls of it was like I got the cool story. So
yeah,
you know,
yeah. Oh, well,
so it was a win.
It's something I say. It's not fucking news to you, but it's something I say all the time on this show, and is that. For a comic, in your head, even if the last light was expiring in your eye, but you were holding on to life, you'd be thinking, if I live through this, it's going to be a fucking great story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's always like at the back of your head.
Sure. And like, the point of it is when some guy who is really angry, or his chick is heckling you, and you know that like you just slammed her so hard that he's going to have to say something, like, as a man, you know, he has
this is coming.
He has to defend his woman. Like, you just, like, I always see both sides of it, like playing chess from both sides. It's like, okay, if, you know, she is saying something, I got to say something to her, and then she's going to complain to him, and then he's going to have to say something to me, and then I'm going to have to take both of them on, and then he's going to have to stand up. Yeah. And, like, that's just how it is in this Animal Planet world that we live in, called the Comedy Club. So,
okay,
you know,
I want to ask you one last question, because I know you've seen this video, and I wonder if you've ever had anything similar. Obviously not the same, but and this might have been the worst, was glass whipping out of your head. That's pretty fucking bad. But do you remember this video of that guy he's talking shit to he's the guitar comic, and he hits the guy in the head with a guitar?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
That is probably one of my favorite things I've ever seen in my life, even though I shouldn't revel in the fact that he probably really injured that poor person that got hit in the head with the guitar. But
they should show that at comedy school. If there was like a comedy academy, they should show that. Well, he handled it wrong. Do you need to set up or you talk
No,
about
I'll put a link on the site so people can see it. But I mean, essentially, there's a guy heckling. There's a guitar comic on stage who's not very good. He's not very funny. And there's a guy in the audience heckling him. And I guess the guy... we can't tell if the guy makes a move or not, but the comic decides that the guy's made a move, and he stands up and just whack. You just see the guitar leave frame and then come back completely broken. But the audience was pissed at the heckler. The minute the guy hits him in the head, they just turn on the comic, which I guess is fair.
Sounds like a web redemption for Daniel. That's a cool thing, because every comic looked at that and they laughed at it. But you know what? Like, everybody's always like, well, he wasn't that funny. But it's like, you know, I don't think you should be attacked, because you're not that funny.
No,
you know, like,
you're just up there doing your job.
There's never like a birthday clown. Like, okay, if he's not clowning enough, we should be able to, stomp him.
Right. But, exactly.
Yeah, that video, like, I think shocked a lot of comics. Like, I better learn how to Kaibo or something. I better step up my kickboxing classes.
You've never had anybody try to jump you on stage. This glass thing was the worst.
Yeah, I've had all those different, like, kind of experiences. There's always the guy with the better, like, cool story, and, like, the guy who tells you, like, the cool, like, if things get really bad, the microphone, you bang off the bottom and you got yourself a club.
Right.
Like, wow, how did he learn that? And then you're like, this guy's right, man.
Right.
Exactly. You're not up here alone.
Yeah.
But I would say those days are coming to an end, I hope, because, today's crowd, I think they're more about judging you on the net than they are.
No, they just blow you up. Yeah,
you have like a cool crowd of like people into.
I feel like finally
your crowd is very cool. By the way, I'm just saying
they're okay. I will say that what's lovely is most of the people that come to my shows listen to the podcast or know me from Archer. They already kind of have a sense of who I am as a comedian, so they come for that. And I haven't had a crazy heckler in a long time. I did.
You can get the super fan. That sometimes
the super fan is almost worse because you can't do anything about the super fan. Yeah, the person who's telling you they love you out loud, you can't then tell them to shut up.
They love you, yeah.
No, they're so happy to be there. They want to talk to you.
And I always take the side of the super fan, going like, "What's wrong with these other dead fish in here? Step it up." You see this guy?
That's a great way to go. This guy took his shirt off. What's wrong with you?
I mean, come on, guys. Look at he's excited, like he just got out of jail or something. Look at this guy.
But yeah, no, I had this conversation recently where the club was like, "What do you do about a heckler?" And I was like, I haven't had a negative. I get the super fans. I haven't had the crazy person. I threw somebody out of a show recently.
No, you did?
Well, he just looked miserable. You know,
I just remember looking
yeah,
miserable.
I did. Well, you know, it's like it was.
I never like anybody to leave. I really.
Really?
I always feel bad because, like, you know, especially when it's the couple. Like, you know, I've done a lot of shows like in Utah, Salt Lake City, and stuff like that. And like the people there are super cool. Like they get like this whole thing of like, you know, hey, they're religious. But like there was one couple that came down, and I'll never forget. It was like a young. Like a young Mormon couple, I suppose, and like they were total polite and everything.
Right.
But I could tell like 3 like inappropriate jokes in, they looked at each other and like,
oh
like
no,
we gave it a shot.
We tried.
It's way too dirty. We're 2 jokes away from hell. Let's get out of here now. And I felt so bad for them because I was like, all they wanted to do was be a part of it, have a good time. And that's when I always wish, like, do you ever wish this? Like, I wish I could change into like the funniest clean guy I know, like Brian Regan.
Brian Regan.
You know, like I wish I was this guy.
Right.
And they'd be loving it, and it'd be like everybody have a great time.
Oh, I know.
I'm a filthy, dirty. Hate it.
You can't do anything about it.
I know. What can you do?
No,
right?
nothing.
Thanks for having me on.
This was so much fun. Thank you for
great.
coming on my show.
I'm finally got a chance to actually chat.
To actually have a conversation. Yeah.
Well, even though you're not going to be on the porn show, I'm giving you the Dave's All Porn hat.
Oh.
Because now you're part of the Dave's All Porn family.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I love it. I will wear this around everywhere but on my CBS daytime show.
Yeah, don't do that.
And
can I take a picture of you? Well, will that ruin your chance?
Yeah, no,
of
that's
running for
okay. It
governor?
was just my head next to like a giant penis that I think was like the because there's no like a green screen where there's like porn going behind your head.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that.
You know, when we first started doing that, because we have to cover everything, you know, I'd be like, make me the guy who covers the taint.
Right,
Make me the guy and then it just came like, you know, we'd do a gangbang scene. There's like holes
floating
and dicks
the couch
and balls.
around, and
it's like, give her the ball, give her the dick, and I'll take the asshole, and you know, I'd try and be the gentleman.
Too difficult. Okay.